Our next speaker will share how to turn your community into your growth team's secret weapon. She'll dive into the tactics of building meaningful relationships that promote the growth and scaling of a community. She's an educator turned community builder and helped grow ClassDojos to 90% of US schools in over 180 countries. She spends her days developing creative growth marketing and community efforts centered around relationships, trust, and brand love. She enjoys collaborating with fellow community builders and geeking out over the endless impact of thriving communities. Everyone, please welcome, is she here? Oh, there she is. Jenna Kleine. Yeah.
Hi, friends. Thanks for coming. This is so cool. So I work at ClassDojo. If you're unfamiliar, ClassDojo is an app that teachers use in the classroom to communicate with parents. I joined the team about 3.5 years ago. And when I joined, I discovered first that we had a really incredible community. So what I mean by that is our teachers are extremely passionate. They love what they do, and they crave collaboration with other teachers. Second, I realized we had an amazing product. I actually used to be an educator myself, and I used ClassDojo in my own classroom, so I'm a little biased. I knew we had a great product. I loved it myself. But what I thought was really unique once I joined the team was that when we heard teachers in our community describe ClassDojo, they didn't just say, I find this really helpful, or this is a cool tool. They said, I love ClassDojo. It has changed my life, and I cannot imagine teaching without it. And that's super special. So we felt cool. We felt like unicorn, and we were like, woo. But now what? What do you do with that magical equation, right? So I started thinking about the fact that teachers love the product, and they're craving collaboration. They want to share with other teachers. And to me, that seemed like a ripe opportunity to focus on virality. So if virality is new to you, I'll give you a little bit of context. So the viral loop essentially is when someone hears about the product, they sign up, they engage with your product, they love the product, hopefully, or at least they find it really helpful, and then they share. So for me, I wanted to figure out, how do I complete this loop? How do I make sure that people are sharing the product and new teachers are signing up? And what I quickly discovered is that teachers that love the product were already doing this. It was amazing. So my job was done. I didn't have to do anything. Just kidding. So I wanted to figure out a way to 10 times the amount of sharing. How do I amplify this? How can we do this? So it's kind of a big task, and I had no idea what I was doing. How many of you, when you first started doing community management, were you like, I have no idea what I'm doing? Anyone can relate? Cool. Me too. So I sort of dove in head first and made up some frameworks that I thought might work, may not work, but I was excited to experiment and see what we could do. So the first framework is focusing on macro communities. And when I say a framework, I mean as a strategy to drive growth. So if you focus on a macro community, you're focusing on increasing your surface area, right? So maybe that's a community growth program that's focused on growing as far and as wide across the United States as possible. So this is something we have used as we've grown to over 180 countries. We'll choose a target market, and we'll implement certain growth strategies to try to grow throughout the macro community. The other framework is micro communities. That's when you're trying to increase your density. You find specific pockets where maybe only one user is actively using the product, and you try to grow within that area. So in education, is anyone else here from the education space? Cool, awesome. In education, a micro-community is like a school, right? Teachers work in a school, they have colleagues, so if one teacher in the school is using your product, perhaps a community growth effort focused on micro-communities would try to increase that density from 1 teacher to 10 teachers. Or you could have it focused on a district, from 1 teacher to 100 teachers, right? To take that out of the education world, is anyone on Nextdoor? Love Nextdoor, it's awesome. So a micro-community for them would be a neighborhood, right? Seeing the active number of residents per neighborhood would be focusing on a micro-community. So after figuring out these frameworks, we discovered, hey, if we can figure out how to grow throughout macro-communities and micro-communities, we can take over the world. So easy, right? Not exactly. It's sort of a daunting task, and especially being a community team of 1 at the time, I was like, how the heck am I supposed to do this? Luckily, I have another teammate now. We have a community team of 2. Caitlin's right there. She's awesome. And she actually runs the program that I'm about to talk about now. Ambassadors. So how many of you already have an ambassador program? Legit, that's so cool. Is anyone here considering launching one, or you're about to launch one? Awesome. So hopefully some of the things I share about what I've learned from launching our program and what Caitlin has learned from improving our program, you guys can take that back and apply it to your own community. But ambassador programs are fantastic for a number of things. They're great for engagement, retention, brand awareness. But because I was focused on virality, I wanted to figure out how can we make an ambassador program that's focused on growing throughout these macro and micro communities? How do we do that? Where do we start? So to save time, because I only have 20 minutes, I'm just going to talk about macro communities today. So I'll share some tactics of how we created an ambassador program to grow as far and as wide as possible, increasing our surface area. So the first step in launching an ambassador program for me was figuring out who our ambassador persona was. What do they look like, right? What do they care about? And figuring out what sorts of people would want to be part of this sort of community, right? So I've seen a number of things work with other companies. Some companies have focused on building an ambassador program with influencers, so people with a big social media following, maybe a bit of celeb status. But for us, we took a bit of a different approach. We wanted to find your everyday teacher who was crazy passionate about what they do. They loved the product. They were already sharing it with their friends. And they had dreams. They wanted to have an impact outside of their own classroom. And they were craving being a part of something bigger. They wanted to lead a movement, but they didn't know where to do that or who to get in touch with. So we wanted to reach out to those people. So we started an application process. We reached out to teachers in our community. We have a teacher community on Facebook. And we include a few things in our applications. First is prerequisites. So we wanted to make sure that ambassadors coming into the program were already experts on the product. We wanted to know that they were already sharing because they just loved it. And we also wanted to know they're passionate about doing something bigger, right? There weren't many other skills we require of our ambassadors except for the fact that they're eager to learn and eager to get involved. So we include that on the application so they know what they're getting themselves into. Next is expectations. So on the application, we actually include everything that we expect an ambassador to accomplish during the program if we do our job supporting them. We also make sure to include what does a successful ambassadorship look like, right? So it's up to you and your team to figure out what your expectations are. I'm happy to share that one-on-one with some of you after if you're interested in our expectations. But it's important to know, especially in the education space, our ambassadors have full-time jobs. They're teachers who are really strapped on time. And our ambassadorship is not a financial incentive. They do it because they want to be a part of this community and something bigger. So wherever your ambassadors work, make sure that you look into their district policies and you make sure that you comply with any policies that are in place so that you're not crossing any lines as far as expectations go. Next is support. So in our application, we state exactly how we're going to support these amazing teachers, right? So if our expectation is that we hope that they, host a meetup in their local area, or we hope that they, share their story on their blog, or potentially present at a conference, right? We don't expect them to have already done that or to be masters at that yet. We hope to help them develop those skills. So we want them to know straight up in the application process, we're here for you, so don't worry if you haven't done it. We want to help you achieve that, and we're here for you. Last is exclusivity. So we make sure to state in our application there are a limited number of spots open each year, and we hand select our ambassadors. And the reason we do this, and the reason it is exclusive, although I would like it to be this endless, huge group, is that we're a small team. And to us, we really value support. We provide relentless support for our ambassadors, and we want to make sure no one falls through the cracks. So we do have to keep it small. What's also nice about an exclusive ambassador program is it does make them feel a little special, right? And a part of something that not everyone can be a part of. So next is empowerment. A question I get a lot is, it can be kind of easy to extrinsically motivate someone, right? There are so many food apps out there that are like, hey, if you share this link, I'll send you a donut or something. I'm like, of course I want a donut. I'll do that for you, duh. But I don't continue to share that link, right? So how do you avoid one-time sharing syndrome, right? How do you intrinsically motivate your ambassadors? How do you empower them to take ownership and feel like they really are a part of something bigger? You get to know them, become their friend. It's important, if you haven't launched your program yet, I would encourage you to start small. Because it takes time. Talk to your ambassadors, whether it's in person, if they're in your local area, on Skype, Google Hangouts, whatever it is, get to know your ambassadors one-on-one and form a real relationship with them, right? If you don't have the capacity to do that for 100 people, start much smaller and make sure that you can do that, because those conversations are going to help you curate your ambassador program. So what we do in these conversations is we learn, what are your passions? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What professional skills do you want to develop? And then we curate our ambassador program to help them achieve those goals. So being a ClassDojo ambassador isn't just about, share ClassDojo with as many people as possible and we'll send you a tote bag. Although we love swag, we send swag. It's about, how do we take this passionate group of educators and help them develop the skills and have the experiences that they could only hope for, right? That they may not have right in front of them, and how do we provide that to them? So how do we do it? What do we provide our ambassadors with? Most importantly, a community. So we connect all of our ambassadors with each other. We use Facebook. Our ambassador team is global. So Facebook is actually wonderful for translations and making sure that they can make those connections, even in different countries. What's fantastic about the ambassador community is they can provide support for one another far more than I can provide them or Caitlin can provide them, because they're in it, right? They're teaching every single day, and they can share ideas with each other and give each other tips and tricks on how to involve themselves in the ambassador program. Next is product trainings. So like I said with our prerequisites, we do expect our ambassadors coming in to be experts on our product. But like many of you, I'm sure your product is continuously evolving, right? So as our product evolves, we host virtual product trainings to make sure that they're always in the know and they're the expert, right? Because if they're your ambassador, people are going to know and they're going to say, hey, aren't you a ClassDojo ambassador? Like, what's up with this new thing? And if they don't know and they're not aware of what the product change is, that's on us, that's our bad. We need to make sure that all of our ambassadors just have top-notch knowledge at all times. If our ambassadors are going to present at an education conference, they want to go host a community meetup in their local area, or if they want to write a blog post, whatever it is they want to do, we provide this support to make sure that they're successful. This was a learning process for us to figure out what sort of support we provide them with. We had a few ambassadors who were like, I really want to host a coffee meetup. And we're like, cool, let's make it happen. And only a few people showed up. It was still wonderful because teachers can collaborate with just one other person, just like I could talk to one person here and have a great conversation. But we quickly learned what sorts of resources are very helpful to ensure if an ambassador is going to go through the trouble of hosting a coffee meetup, we want to make sure we have people there in those seats and that the ambassador feels like it was a success. And they walk away having that adrenaline hit going, wow, that was amazing. I had a community magical moment, and I want to do that again. So ambassadors are an extension of the ClassDojo team, right? So we treat them as such. If I were to go to an education conference and teach teachers about ClassDojo, I would make sure to have some swag in hand to give the teachers to take back to their kids, right? And so we provide that to our teachers as well if they're presenting at a conference or if they're hosting a meetup, because we want them to feel professional and we want to feel like they're providing just as much as someone from ClassDojo would provide if they were hosting that event or that meetup. Next is we provide ambassador badges that ambassadors love, and they put on their email footer and on their blog and on their social media profile to make their ambassadorship feel a little more official. And last, we provide them with a blurb. So for us, because a lot of our ambassadors' goals are to become a technology coordinator in their school district, or potentially they want to work for an education company or a nonprofit, being a part of our ambassador program really does help move their career forward. So we give them a blurb that they can put on their resume or on their LinkedIn profile that gives them the sort of accolades they need for their next job interview. Last is promotion and celebration. So if an ambassador is going to be presenting at a conference or hosting a meetup, we make sure to tweet that out, put it on Facebook, and just shout it from the rooftops, again, to make sure that we draw a crowd for them, but to also just give them kudos and celebrate them. Teaching, especially, can be a thankless job, and we want to make sure that we make them feel extra special and they feel like everything that they're doing is being celebrated and noticed and acknowledged. So another huge question I get asked a lot, which we're still figuring out and tweaking, so if you have any advice to make this better, I'm all ears. So how do you ensure that all of your ambassadors are being effective and they're staying active in your program? It's a really hard question to answer, and I would say that the most important thing to keep in mind when you're trying to create a program management system is that everyone has different skills, right? Some of our ambassadors are introverts, and they don't want to present at a conference, and that is cool. We will never make them do that. They love writing. They want to write blog posts, or they love getting involved in Twitter chats. They love social media. Cool. Let's help you strengthen that arm, right? Some of them love the community aspect face-to-face, so we're helping them host meetups in their local community. So it's important to remember that everyone has different skills, and we want to make sure that we're differentiating our support so that they're all successful. So our ambassador cycle, or our program management plan, essentially is our ambassadors apply for the program. We welcome them and we provide resources. So we actually send them a handwritten note in the mail and a few goodies. And then we also welcome them into our Facebook community. And we also have a Google Drive folder that has resources for any and everything they could want to do. So if an ambassador is like super gung-ho and they're like, oh, I want to dive in, I want to present at a conference, I want to host a meetup, I want to do this, that, and the other thing, cool, we have everything for you, all in the Google Drive folder. This was also a good learning curve for us, because at first we were replying to these inquiries one by one, which is very difficult to scale. So I would make sure whatever your expectations are for your ambassadors, have resources set up ahead of time so that they have everything right at their fingertips. Next is that now they're in the community, so they're already sharing with ambassadors. What's cool is that you'll see the really eager ambassadors that are super gung-ho, and they start sharing right away. They're posting photos from their presentations or their meetups, and ambassadors who may be a little more timid to get started are super inspired by it. What's also great is ambassadors become leaders, right? And they're sharing their expert tips with other ambassadors and helping each other develop those skills. We check in with our ambassadors all the time. They at least hear from us once a week. And we're always hopping on the phone, hopping on Skype, to chat with them and see what's going well, what's not going well, what skills would you like to develop that we haven't helped you develop yet, right? And this helps us continue to tweak and improve our program throughout the cycle. As I mentioned earlier, you'll start to realize that some ambassadors take to certain things more than others. So this is a great opportunity for ambassadors to be leaders within the community. They can host a video chat Q&A session on hosting a coffee meetup where other ambassadors who haven't done it yet but really want to can ask all the questions they need to ask. This is really cool because ambassadors love learning from other ambassadors, right? So like we love learning from our peers and hearing what went well and what didn't go well, as opposed to hearing from someone that works for the company. It just seems to be a little more meaningful when it's peer-to-peer learning. At the end of the cycle, which for us this is a full school year, we allow our ambassadors to opt in for the next year. If they're down, we're like, yes, amazing. If they'd rather opt out, either because they were switching careers or it just wasn't what they expected, that's cool too. We still love them. And then you also have the edge case where some ambassadors maybe didn't fulfill their own expectations because they were a little busy this year or something, but they want to give it another shot. They want to try the next year, and we always welcome them with open arms. In each of those three scenarios, we always try to talk to the ambassadors and figure out again what went well, what didn't go well, how could we make this better for you next year, or even if you're opting out, how can we make this better for future ambassadors? And that gives us an opportunity to then rework everything, make sure we improve our resources, make sure we improve how we differentiate our support, and make sure that ultimately everyone is successful. So our biggest measure of success is, are 100% of our ambassadors participating? Are they doing something? Are they developing a skill that is important to them? Do they feel like they're part of this movement? And that is hard to measure, right? So for me, we're constantly feeling the temperature of our community. Again, one-on-one relationships, seeing if it's going well or not, right? So you can't really put a number to it, except for the fact that we want to make sure every single one of our ambassadors walks away at the end of the cycle saying, wow, I feel like I have achieved something. I feel like I have learned a new skill, and I feel like I am moving my career forward. Another way we measure impact is just aligning with our product metrics. I work with our growth team, and we're constantly measuring actives, acquisition numbers, density, right? Market share in new countries. So which of those metrics aligns to your community growth program? If your community growth program is focused on a macro community or trying to grow your community in Spain, cool. Maybe you want to care about your acquisition numbers or your active numbers in Spain. If you have a micro community where you're trying to increase your numbers of teachers in a school, track that, share that, right? And don't just share that impact internally, which we all know is important to share it with your team so they know the importance of your community growth efforts, but share it with your ambassadors. Make sure that they know the impact they're having because it's amazing, right? Celebrate with them. I think it's important to take a moment with your ambassadors too and reflect. At the end of the year, get them together, right? If you're a huge global community, then find a way for them to get together with people in their local area and celebrate all that they've accomplished together and what they've accomplished for their career. So just a quick little ambassador checklist for your back pocket if you're going to be launching an ambassador program. First, have clear expectations so they know what they're getting themselves into. Second, empowerment. Make sure you give them ownership. You do this by getting to know them and catering your ambassador program to help them achieve their personal and professional goals. Next is support. Provide relentless support for your ambassadors. Don't scale up your ambassador program unless you have the capacity to do so. It's better to start small and make sure that you're giving each of them the support they need. Have a good management program in place to make sure no one's falling through the cracks, and continue to check in. Management does not mean a one-year check-in to see how they're doing. Again, this is why you want to start small, perhaps, and figure out your good program management strategy before scaling it out. And measure it, right? Prove your worth to your company, but also share your metrics with your ambassadors so they know the impact that they're having too. So good luck. launching your ambassador programs or tweaking them. If you ever have any advice for me and for us to improve ours, I'm all ears. Growing a community and a product is super fun and exciting, so I just encourage you to experiment and try things out and have fun. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it.